Netflix, come here. Come here. Open up your ears. Stop destroying everything I love. Okay? Let's go.
You want to die for this planet? Fine. What's 17 more years? I can always start again. Make another kid.
No! God, please, no!
So I just finished to watch the 3rd season of Umbrella Academy, and I'm not only disappointed, I'm actually disgusted, because this is everything that Netflix does over and over again. They tease you with incredibly original and weird concepts. They give you a 2nd season which kind of repeats the same things, but it's still good, let's admit it. And then they give us a 3rd season which makes no sense at all, and you have no idea how anyone allowed it to be streaming. And then of course nobody watches it, everyone gives negative opinions about it, and it gets cancelled. This is what's going to happen to Umbrella Academy. I'm 100% sure we're never going to see a 4th season, and it's just going to get cancelled. And of course the memory of Umbrella Academy is 100% tainted, and it's all because of Netflix and the fact that, first of all, they didn't give it enough budget. Second of all, they squeezed in a lot of weird narrative choices that make no sense. Third of all, I'm pretty sure that they didn't work with the comic book creators at all, because this season is an insult to the comic books themselves and to the characters, to be honest.
Are you their mascot?
More like their ringer.
It's a ballroom business!
Now that I've done my very quick rant, let's give some context, okay? I love the Umbrella Academy, I love the comics, and I'm gonna be deconstructing the 3rd season today. I'm gonna give you a lot of spoilers, of course, because I have to address everything about it in order to convince you of how bad it is, even though you probably know if you've seen it, especially if you're a fan as well. And then we'll head into the comic book itself, because I'm a huge fan of the comic book, and I think that this series here has been misleading since the very beginning, even though the 1st season and the 2nd season were quite close to the original material. The 3rd season has nothing to do with the 3rd volume, which is called Hotel Oblivion. It's a complete travesty, and honestly I'm ashamed that I had to watch it, especially because I reread the comic quite recently. It's insane. It's insane how different it is, and in the most boring way possible.
You're really fucking boring.
So where do we find our family? Our family has managed to save the world from yet another apocalypse once more. When they came back to the present, to 2019 if I'm not mistaken, they've actually come back to a different version of their own future, because they've actually changed some things in the past. And we are shown that Reginald basically was so turned off by his current children back in the 1960s that he decided not to adopt him, and he ended up adopting a set of different children instead, which is the Sparrow Academy. It is approximately the main villain of this season here, even though at the end of the day the main villain is actually the apocalypse once more. That is a thing that is really not present in the comics. I have no idea why they keep redoing it over and over again. Maybe that's how they pitched the adaptation itself. Let's create a new apocalypse for each season. But when it comes to the stakes, it makes no sense at all, and you kind of stop caring after a while, because you know that at the end of the day, like the characters themselves, everything they do turns out to shit. It doesn't matter what they do, there will still be another apocalypse. So we don't really care about stopping it either, and I feel like that's a bit of a problem.
I heard a rumor that I blew your mind.
I'd like to make myself believe.
In the comics themselves, for example, in the 1st volume, there was an apocalypse happening, of course, as well, because of Vanya/Victor within the 3rd season itself, but it didn't get repeated in the 2nd and the 3rd volumes. Those volumes are actually independent stories that only star the same characters, and that star incredibly weird secondary characters as well. And that is the problem with this season here. There is almost nothing that is memorable. Even the Sparrow Academy, they didn't really spend that much time doing character development on them because they wanted so much the audience to choose the Umbrella Academy instead of the Sparrow Academy. They ended up basically not giving them a personality, besides the fact that these are the evil version of the Umbrella Academy. It kind of reminded me of The Boys, but not done to its optimal potential, because they play a lot of marketing. They have to be perceived as the superheroes which save the world at all times, so they can never fail, and that has a toll on them psychologically, of course. But at the end of the day, these are just our bad guys for this season, and it's a bit of a shame, especially because they're not fun at all. If you think about the bad guys from the second or even the first season, in the first season, do you remember Cha-Cha and Hazel?
I'm for no mayo.
Those people were amazing. They had emotions, they had their journey that they were going through, and they were relatable because of it. Second season, we had the handler, which was playing a big part within the plot itself, but we also had the Swedes, which are quite fun at the end of the day. And of course, we had incredible cult scenes like the boardroom murders, where number 5 just goes completely insane.
Call security!
And we got another scene like that in the first season, where we look at the murders within the coffee shop. In this season here, there is almost no blood. There are a couple of people who die at the end of the day, but we don't really feel it that much. I feel like this season has the worst action sequences within the entire series. Number 5 has literally nothing to do within this season here. They kind of tried to give him a weird time travel subplot with Lila, but at the end of the day, they don't really learn that much within that subplot there. And this season here is the one that really shows how the concept that they've chosen to go with when it comes to the Umbrella Academy show, it just doesn't work. Every single season we got a family who refuses to communicate with each other. They split up and do weird separate investigations, and then they finally come together for the ending. They did that in the first season, they did that in the second season, and they're doing it again in this season here.
Get up, we're going.
Where?
Save the world.
Oh, is that all?
How long do we have? 4, maybe 5 days before the rest of existence is blitzed.
I'm getting really sick of this!
But here, it's incredibly boring because there's almost nothing to investigate, which leaves us with just a couple of duos and different characters just mumbling and arguing and absolutely doing nothing interesting at all. I feel like the problem with this season also is that they basically killed off all the bad guys that they established in the first and the second season within the second season, meaning that the organization itself that claims to protect time is basically non-existent, and it doesn't do anything to prevent anything within the third season, which makes no sense at all, of course. But this is really a problem when you think that within the season itself there are really almost no villains, because at the end of the day, the Sparrow Academy, they are still superheroes and they want to save the day. So they will try at the end of the day to work with the Umbrella Academy to stop the apocalypse, you know? So who is the villain? And who actually wants the apocalypse to happen? No one. Right? So we've got a season where no one is really trying to stop the Umbrella Academy. No one is really trying to make the apocalypse happen. The Umbrella Academy, at the end of the day, they don't really care about the apocalypse anymore. At one point, they realize that it doesn't make sense anymore. Everything they do doesn't work. And then they try to set up weird subplots with the Sparrow Academy and the Hotel Oblivion from the comics, which don't work at all. Honestly, when I think back at this season, there are not that many things that I liked. The budget was so incredibly low. The CGI within the first few episodes specifically was incredibly bad, and I kind of forgot how much this series relies on CGI, because we've got a lot of weird characters who have weird powers that mainly function through CGI. Even Luther, it was a bit of a shame that this season he was always keeping his clothes on. And also it's incredible how this season turned almost every single character into a stupid version of themselves. Because Luther, just a small reminder, that guy fucking went to the moon. Astronauts are like some of the most clever people on Earth, and this season treats Luther like he was the most stupid person ever, like he was the Shaggy of this weird Scooby-Doo Umbrella Academy team, which makes no sense. Number 5, as I said before, he has nothing to do within the series because he doesn't get to kill anyone as well. And then Diego is always arguing with Lila about children and not children and stuff like that. Allison, so Rumor, actually has some interesting things going on for her, but at the end of the day, when it comes to her performance, it wasn't really well shown because all she does is just look sad and angry, and she just snaps at everyone, which is a bit of a shame, I think. And I also feel like this is the season where Rumor should start to use her powers a lot more, especially because it feels like she's got nothing to lose. I kept wondering why she didn't use her powers to get back at the Sparrow Academy, for example, when she was trying to retrieve the time-traveling bag. One idea, for example, what if she rumored like random people like walking in the street and used them as human shields against the Sparrow Academy? Wouldn't that be really, really cool to see as well? And that would be quite evil as well, and it would show how she was just relentless when it comes to achieving her goal. But no, what she does is basically she lies a couple of times. Everyone is basically lying to each other, which they do also in the previous seasons. But this is the season that really feels like it's too much, you know? This is the season where I'm like, this family has saved the world twice. They should be together right now, or they should be able to work together much better. Honestly, the scene where they fight the Sparrow Academy all together was one of the most pathetic scenes I've ever seen, because the Sparrow Academy is not actually that strong when you think about it. And actually they proved that across the entire season, because they're almost as incompetent as them, because they never actually put down the Umbrella Academy. And I'm pretty sure that they've stopped like much more powerful people, and it's just that they're really stupid. They're written that way. When it comes to other characters, when you think about the Vanya Victor thing...
Who elected you, Vanya?
It's, Victor.
Who's Victor?
I am. It's who I've always been.
What the hell just happened?
I am upset about it, but just because within the narrative itself, it was not foreshadowed at all that Vanya was basically trans and that he wanted to be perceived as Victor, and they tried to basically shoehorn this narrative here, and the explanation was that because of the relationship that he was having in the second season, he realized that that's the way that he wanted to identify and be portrayed as. And I think I've heard even that Elliot Page didn't really mind that he would be playing like Vanya again within this season here, so he didn't want to put necessarily a transition narrative within the season here. It is Netflix. Netflix actually called this one here. And the thing that really bothers me is that it's never actually part of the plot. You hear some jokes sometimes being like, oh, this person is actually Victor now, it's not Vanya anymore. And I'm like, okay, fair enough, but like if you want to introduce this kind of narrative here, actually address it. Wouldn't it be way more interesting to give good representation for trans people out there instead of it being like a non-issue? Because it's not the case in our day and age. When you think about it, we're not there yet when someone can actually transition that quickly just by having a haircut and doing nothing else, you know, and everyone accepting him as fast as possible. I wasn't necessarily asking for any kind of bullying or stuff like that, but maybe some reflections among the team when it comes to like gender representation. I think it would have been way more interesting, because as it is right now, it just feels like Netflix want to be patted on the back for including this transition story here because of Elliot and how he wants to be seen within real life. When it comes to Seance, so Klaus, I really liked his subplot, so where he actually gets to spend some time with his dad, so Reginald. But at the end of the day, it actually made me realize that we spent 2 seasons where he was never able to actually know his powers and know how to use them. We are in the 3rd season and there is one member of the team who has never used his powers to their optimal potential. And it's incredibly stupid when you think about it. Especially because I feel like this season here should have come before season 2 maybe. Because season 2 actually feels quite disconnected from everything else, while season 3 actually feels like it's a good conclusion to everything they set up in the first season, especially when it comes to the relationship that they created with their own father and how everything comes together basically. That's also why I think that season 3 doesn't work, and that's maybe why they got confused when it comes to adapting the comics, because it is true that the comics from one volume to the other, they don't really follow each other that much when it comes to all the different subplots. For example, the comic books are quite chaotic, and that's why they work, because they throw everything at you, so many different informations, and they're so incredibly beautiful and colorful. So if you want to get into that, for example, this season looked incredibly bad, but it mostly looked incredibly uninspired when it comes to the different side characters that they were showcasing. So in the third comic book, so Hotel Oblivion here, there are so many incredible, interesting characters because basically, spoiler alert once again, Hotel Oblivion is a prison and Hotel Oblivion has been used by Reginald within the comics to put all the most bad people that the Umbrella Academy has stopped, and they've put them right here in the Oblivion Hotel. Like they say in the series, it's on a parallel dimension and you can access it through different like portals and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure that when Reginald said that it was important that Luther was guarding something on the moon, they meant that he was guarding another portal to the Oblivion Hotel. That's what it meant, because that's something that happens within the comic books here. But anyways, this entire comic book is about all the people within the Hotel Oblivion managing to escape and the Umbrella Academy being incredibly overwhelmed and trying to stop them as much as possible. And there are so many incredibly weird villains that escape from here, and that's why I'm so incredibly mad at this season here, mostly because even when they had the potential to create a villain, so the people who is guarding this Hotel Oblivion, who looks nothing like the one in the comic, they just went with weird looking samurais. Just to remind you, there was a character in the second season who was a man with a fishbowl and a fish as head.
Quid pro quo? What do you think?
Why not? Here's your quid. Here's your pro. Here's your quo.
That was one of the characters within the show here. And the only villain that they had to offer for this season was just a couple of weird looking samurais who are incredibly good at everything. Fuck that, right? It's incredibly stupid. I mean, there's a lot of challenges when it comes to adapting comic books. I feel like Doom Patrol is a really good example of how to really embrace the weirdness of the comic books to create something thought-provoking and fun to watch at the same time.
I had a rat in my head.
I think she's saying Danny is a street.
The street's a he.
Danny's genderqueer, and they use non-binary pronouns.
What's going on?
I think it's a staring contest.
Nigga, what the f?
And Umbrella Academy, they were on the right path for the first season. For example, there was this one moment in the third season here that was incredibly powerful, and it was just a conversation between different characters where they were just summing up all the different traumas that they went through within the first season. And I was just like, wow, season 1 was incredibly powerful from an emotional perspective. And I really miss that, because we've got almost nothing within this third season here. We kind of have the repercussions from all the different seasons that came before, but at the same time, that's not enough to make us care about these people anymore. Especially when the plot keeps treating them like idiots constantly, just so that they would delay the inevitable, so the apocalypse itself, right? When you think about it, when you try to sum up this season, almost nothing happens. We're just waiting for the apocalypse to happen until they have no choice and they have to act as stupidly as possible. So in this case here, by listening to Reginald. And that's what happens. They are just being played with from the beginning by everyone. And it makes no sense, you know. They don't really make a lot of decisions. A lot of people backstab each other, but then they kind of forgive each other, or they just don't talk about it. The whole fact that Allison like murdered Harold off screen is incredibly weird. Why would she not do it on screen so they would actually understand how much it hurt for her to do that, or how much pleasure she had in committing vengeance, you know? Either one would have been more interesting than what we got here, which is just a scene of her delivering a corpse to the Sparrow Academy. And the whole feud that she has with Victor as well. I mean, sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's really pushed to the extreme, and sometimes I really think that was stupid. I mean, when Harold dies, for example, Victor doesn't go insane. How is it possible? How can this person not go insane after losing this person here, who was the only link to the person that he loved in the second season, and that he spent so much time trying to save, to get the powers out of him? There are some people who actually say, I mean, don't be a hypocrite, you killed so many people in the first apocalypse and in the second one as well, so shut up, we just killed this guy here, so who cares?
Here's what's what. Humanity is a plague. We're a disgusting, narcissistic, selfish parasite, and the world would be a better place without us. It should be everyone's moral duty to kill themselves. I could do it now, quite happily. Just go upstairs, jump off the roof, and make sure I land on some cunt from accounts.
feel like the concept of this season worked just because when it comes to the parallel universe thing, so the fact that Harold would kill all the mothers, and at the end of the day, that's exactly why this season happened. And of course, Harold had all of that power because of what Vanya/Victor did in the second season. So at the end of the day, it's Vanya/Victor's fault again. They're trying to come together a bit more, especially when it comes to not blaming Victor/Vanya again when it comes to everything that goes wrong. But at the same time, just watch this season and look how many episodes we have when people are just walking around, being upset at each other, procrastinating and not doing anything interesting.
Shouldn't we, I don't know, mark the occasion somehow?
You just want to throw a party.
Why do you hate tiny sandwiches? Hey, what's up?
Who's the one to throw you a big stupid party so you feel loved?
Oh,
Do you feel loved?
yeah, I do.
Good. You are. Can we all get back to saving the world now?
I feel like maybe just because there were so many different like villains and side characters in the second and the first season who were trying to stop the Umbrella Academy for doing anything, that really helped with the pacing of the show itself, and it really made me overlook all the problems that the team kind of had, because they could procrastinate, they could not communicate, but at the end of the day, if they reacted right when people attacked them, it remained quite interesting to watch. And the final few episodes, there are so many things that are introduced, but at the same time, they give you just little breadcrumbs. They didn't really want to adapt Hotel Oblivion because maybe it was too expensive to get so many different extras, and maybe they thought it would look too ridiculous, or maybe they just didn't give a shit, which is possible. And they couldn't adapt the comic book The Sparrow Academy because it's not out yet, because this one here came out in 2019 if I'm not mistaken, so not that long ago, just before the pandemic. Not sure whether Gerard Way and Gabriel are actually working on it right now, but I'm really hopeful just because the comic books are so interesting and so much fun, and I'm really looking forward to see how they end Volume 4. This one here is kind of like a Game of Thrones problem where they were trying to create new material using all the stuff that was set up in the first and the second season, but it just doesn't work. I mean, let's try maybe to list a couple of good things that I liked about this season here. I did like the musical number. That was incredibly weird. Fun. This is exactly why I watch Umbrella Academy at the end of the day, because I want to see things that are different. I want to see things that I'm not used to seeing. I did really enjoy the wedding scene and the relationship that Luther created with Sloan, mostly because, I mean, Luther is so underappreciated, but that has to do with bad writing, because it almost makes no sense that he would be so underappreciated by everyone. So it was really cute that someone actually saw him for the first time in a really, really long time, you know? And I actually really did enjoy the flashbacks of him on the moon, even if it's not really of actuality anymore. It feels like that should have been presented in the first season or something like that. I have no idea why they decided to show it now. And of course, I found it incredibly weird that they decided to kill him off only to bring him back with the very, very final episode. And by the way, the final episode I found an incredibly stupid, the whole idea that they lost their powers, because it kind of sets up yet another season of them trying to retrieve their powers and fix reality to come back to something normal, but it will never work. Maybe the only good thing about it is that it looks like reality is fixed. If they make a fourth season, I'm pretty sure there is not going to be any apocalypse. It's going to be just about fixing the reality, because it looks like Hargreaves set up this new reality so that he could be on top and be the most powerful person ever. Even though I don't really understand why. I mean, it is teased that he's maybe an alien, and I'm not sure if it's teased in the comics themselves. It's just weird. It's just incredibly weird. And also the fact that they have some kind of redemption arc with him within the season itself, but at the end of the day, complete left turn in the final 2 episodes, where he's actually been scheming like that since the very beginning. He wanted to use those children to rewrite reality so that he could be the boss of everything, so he could be Elon Musk. What the fuck? Was that even worth it? I guess we'll never know. I mean, Reginald doesn't have a big part within the comics themselves, and it's kind of weird to have used that character in this particular way. It was way more interesting if they went with the idea that Reginald is actually nice within this reality, and they just went with that, and maybe the children betrayed Reginald instead of the opposite, which is something that has always been happening when you think about it, since the very beginning. So should we be surprised? No. There is nothing surprising that happens in this season. I can't recommend this season here because I had a really bad time. I had to rush it because nothing was happening between one episode and the next. But that's what I thought when it comes to Umbrella Academy. I'm pretty sure Netflix killed it without a doubt. Let me know what you thought of Umbrella Academy down in the comments. Let me know if you like the comics. Let me know if you like this season here and if you like the previous seasons as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like will go to the creators of the comics themselves because I want to see that volume 4, and I really hope that it comes out either this year or maybe next year. Fingers crossed. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
I'm an escaped lunatic, and I like murdering little fat kids like you. So if you hit George or anyone else, I'm going to come to your house. I know where you live, and while you're asleep, I'm going to smash your stupid head in with this hammer. Do you understand? Da 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 da.